Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics live on Trust TV, your go-to hub for everything politics, policy and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight on the program, we take on a growing controversy from the halls of the National Assembly as lawmakers continue to debate the right step forward, especially considering one particular controversial matter, and that has to do with the operations of the Nigeria Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Now, the controversy erupted after Senator Kawu Samaila of the National Assembly took a swipe at some of his colleagues while accusing them of aiding and abetting drug trafficking in the country. Now, his statement sparked outrage across the aisle, as you can imagine, with some senators taking the accusation rather seriously. Now, looking at all of this and the NDLEA's response to how they have, of course, come back fighting against those claims by not just the senator at the center of this particular conversation, but also to make out the point that a lot of people are politicizing the anti-drug trafficking campaign in Nigeria, and they're dragging the NDLEA as an agency into the mud. And of course, we will definitely be unpacking that and what it means for Nigeria, especially under the current dispensation of the leadership of the NDLEA. To help us navigate the issues, we're joined by public affairs commentator Musa Kurra. Abubakar is joining me tonight. Also on the program is State House correspondent, planning and commissioning editor at Trust TV, Mr. Kehinde Amodu. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you so much for joining me on the program. It's good to see you. Right. Okay, so let's start things off first with the response from the NDLEA. Here's their spokesperson.
NDLEA is compelled to call this press briefing today because of the unfortunate development earlier last week during plenary in the Nigerian Senate when some uncomplimentary, unfounded, defamatory remarks were made against the agency. Senator Oyelola Isa Ashiru, Kwara South, reportedly said during his contribution to the debate that the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency is corrupt and compromised, and so on and so forth. It was a shock to read the report of the disparaging remark by the senator, which was completely unprovoked. We waited for a whole week, that is the past 7 days, for him to clarify his position on such a weighty allegation against an institution in the country. Failing to do that, the agency has no option than to come out and set the record straight for the benefit of other distinguished members of the Senate, our local and international partners, as well as the general public. Now, I'll give you how we came to that conclusion. The personal house of Senator Ashiru in GRA Ilorin, the capital of Kwara State, had been raided in recent past by the agency, where drugs and illicit substances were recovered, while two of his aides, Ibrahim Mohammed and Mohammed Yahaya, were arrested. So, going by this backstory, it is deductible that these encounters that the agency has had with the senator must have been responsible for his outburst, an unfortunately false allegation, the type that nobody within and outside of government has ever leveled against NDLEA before. This same agency that he wrongfully got into the headline as the most corrupt government agency in Nigeria is the same agency that has been receiving accolades from local and international bodies. Nigeria, against the background of our encounter with people linked to Senator Ashiru, built and donated by the government of the United Kingdom.
Excerpts there of the presser by the NDLEA, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, in trying to counter this narrative that they say is being pushed by a senator from Kwara State, Senator Ashiru, who the NDLEA says is actually a part of their investigation because some of his close aides were arrested with narcotics in one of their operations in the state. And of course, they say it's easy to connect the dots between his frustrations and his characterization of the operations of the NDLEA and, of course, the matter at hand. So let's begin to unpack these developments with my studio guest tonight. Once again, State House correspondent, planning and commissioning editor at Trust TV, Kehinde Amodu, and of course, Mr. Abubakar is the President, Auctioneers Association of Nigeria, joining me tonight for this conversation. Gentlemen, let's start with the familiar theme of this conversation, which is corruption. And we all know that while we cannot generalize the conversation that every government institution is corrupt, it's safe to say that corruption is a significant battle that the government at federal and at state level has been dealing with. First of all, let me just get some initial reactions to this back and forth between the NDLEA and, some lawmakers who believe the agency is operating in bad faith sometimes. Let me start with you, Mr. Kehinde.
Well, it's a natural thing to have these conversations. Remember that lawmakers are speaking on the floor of plenary where they are immune. So anything said at plenary, they are immune from prosecution, they are immune from backlashes. So it's just like giving lawmakers the free hand to express themselves. Sometimes the reason why this is so is to allow lawmakers to express themselves freely, get to the bottom of knotty issues, and be truthful about it. That's why you have incidences like this and situations like this. To say that there are two issues here. One is that lawmakers themselves are aiding drug use.
Right. Something that was pushed forward by Senator Kausa.
Yes.
Right.
And then the other one is to say that the NDLEA is corrupt. Two issues that are very far from what was the issue on ground. The issue on ground is a bill to establish a national institute on drug awareness
and rehabilitation.
And rehabilitation. So how we got to this particular point, we don't know. You understand?
Just an aside.
Just an aside
to the main conversation.
So yes, we've had this conversation for over 20 years. Ever since we had the NDLEA. The NDLEA actually predated this democratic dispensation. And ever since we had the NDLEA, we'd had this conversation about officers of the NDLEA. I think it's an accusation they will be very familiar with.
Yeah.
Because when you hit and it bites, then people will come back after you.
Right.
So, but I don't think it's something that should actually really worry them to call a presser about, because this has been a conversation that has been around for so long, but it hasn't stopped them from being effective.
Right. Abubakar, let's talk about Nigeria's long battle with drug trafficking, the illicit flows. I mean, in the 80s and the early 90s, Nigeria has built this international reputation for being a conduit pipe, so to say. So many celebrated cases of drug trafficking involving high-profile individuals, for instance. Where does this conversation fit into the fight against drug trafficking? Because I think it's safe to say that public opinion is quite positive about what the NDLEA is currently achieving under its current leadership. But what are your thoughts about this conversation and how it fits into the greater conversation about drug trafficking in this country?
Well, I think it's safe to say that, are we supposed to call it a news when we talk about drug trafficking in this country? I don't think it's a news. The matter has been there for a very long time. As you said, we have a very beautiful name all over the world when it comes to drug trafficking, associated with so many individuals in this country. And sometimes for those that travel out of this country with the green passport, it affects almost everybody that travel. Once you are holding that green passport, that very beautiful passport of ours, sometimes you can be embarrassed at the airport.
You get special treatment.
You get special treatment. I had an experience of this nature sometimes in Shanghai. I went through a very rigorous check-in. I have to virtually tell the customs at the airport that, look, the bag you are looking at is my bag. You can tear it into pieces. I know what you are looking for, but I don't think you get that kind of, I'm not that type of, I came in here for a business and that's what brought me here, and I don't think what you are looking for, you get it from me. You will not. So we have a very, whoever travels out of this country will tell you that one time or the other he must have had a very serious, very bad encounter with the authorities of any country he traveled to regarding this issue of drug, Nigerians associated with drug trafficking and so on. So yeah, to me, it's not news. And for the controversy that is going on between the NDLEA and is it the National Assembly or the Senate, so to say, now who is accusing who?
Well, Senator Ashiru is saying the NDLEA as an agency, in fact, he said they're the most corrupt agency because he is at the receiving end of the extrajudicial operations. Some of his aides were arrested, and the NDLEA in its counter argument says, listen, we had credible information, we went to his house, there are some criminal activities there that involves buying and selling of, you know, banned substances, narcotics and things like that. So that's where the argument came from.
Does that emanated from the NDLEA from the beginning or from Senator Kausmela?
No, Senator Kawasamaila's argument was part of a larger debate about you know, the best way to manage the entire issue with drug trafficking, abuse, and so on and so forth. And he also indicted some of his colleagues who he says, you know, are also involved in either trafficking or abuse of drugs.
So are we sure whether he has given some names to the NDLEA or?
I mean, if he indicts,
if there's
his colleagues,
accusation,
if he indicts his colleagues, it's safe to say the 109 of them are suspects in his argument.
That's
minus
true, that's true, but maybe that triggered the whole thing. His accusation probably triggered the reaction from the NDLEA to go into action and try to unravel some of these accusations from Senator Kausmela. You can't say. You understand, because it's a weighty allegation and against his colleagues, right?
Is it unfathomable, though, that we have political figures who could likely be a part of the problem? Is it unthinkable?
No. We are talking about Nigeria here. Anything goes. There is nothing unthinkable. I think my brother here, who is conversant with some of the political domain, maybe you have one or two things to say about it, but I don't think it's news to me. Even though I have not listened to what Senator Kausmela has said, I have not read what he has said. But what I'm saying basically is controversy regarding these kind of issues with the political in the political arena of this country is normal. I don't think it's something to.
And involving agencies like this. I mean, the EFCC. We're just talking about the EFCC going head to head with the state governors, questioning its legality in terms of its establishment and so on and so forth. Now we see another Nigeria's foremost anti-drug trafficking and abuse agency also receiving this heat. I mean, granted, not from the entire Senate itself, but coming under this pressure, where it has to defend its credibility, its track record, and so on and so forth. What does that signpost for, you know, the fight against drug trafficking in this country, you reckon? If lawmakers openly, brazenly accuse an agency of complicity and corruption, which is not far-fetched, but what does that say about the fight against drug trafficking and abuse?
There are secrets everywhere. Open secrets. What the lawmakers are saying is not completely far from the truth. But we have to look at the context. What is the motive behind lawmakers making these kind of arguments? Are there bad eggs in any organization? Yes, there are bad eggs. Do the bad eggs rub off against the entire organizations? I don't think so. I think the organization has, in the number of years that it has been in operation, done well in its operations. And every week you hear reports of this person being stopped, that person being stopped at the borders, which means that there is work being done. It also means that if you're going to put out this much publicity, you should expect that there is reverse publicity coming out to you, because there is a lot of publicity concerning the NDLEA's operations. So those that will be hit will punch back. And this is what we are actually seeing. Like I said earlier, it's not something the NDLEA should be surprised about. We've had time and time again accusations about this kind of, stain to their operations. Has it stopped them from operating? No, it hasn't stopped them from operating. So, really, like I said, the lawmakers had immunity to say what they needed to say on the floor. And because they know nobody will come after them after they've said it on the floor, because they are immune, they are free to air their minds.
But does the detail that came from that press conference change the perspective of Nigerians who now have to weigh his claim and the counterclaim of NAFTA, of NDLEA, beg your pardon? Because according to the spokesperson, he's saying, surely we can easily deduce that he maybe is feeling bad that we have some of his boys in our custody.
He's attacking his motive and saying that your motive is not pure. That is why you are saying this about us. Because so it's a game of chess. You hit me, I hit you back. If you accuse me of this, then I should be able to, hint to the general public what is your motive behind saying this. In the final analysis, credibility of the witness is shut down. You understand? Which means that, what the NDLEA has done is protect its own integrity, because its integrity is all it has as an organization. No matter how much success you have, if your integrity is put to question, you understand, you have to defend that too. And if everybody, the problem with Nigeria is that there are a lot of people that don't believe in public institutions. Once you mention a public institution, no matter how well they are doing or how well they are not doing, there's that issue of corruption that will come up and say, oh, they are eating our money, or they are making money through illicit means, or they are going through extrajudicial processes. That is always there, because the Nigerian ordinarily does not trust public institutions.
And in talking about the accusations and the counter-accusations, before the presser from the NDLEA, we didn't know the ties between Senator Ashiru, why he's apparently making all of these accusations. But when the NDLEA came out and said, his personal aides were linked to this operation, they have been charged to court, and so on and so forth, doesn't it then speak to the complicity that he was allegedly alluding to? Because if it was somebody else, for instance, of lower ranking or standing, I don't imagine the NDLEA is going to come to your house, arrest some people for peddling drugs, and then you as the house owner would be going about your businesses as usual without any form of interrogation. But to the best of our knowledge, we don't know whether they interrogated the senator or not, but they're coming with this information after. What does that say about their operation, for instance? I mean, his aides are in custody, but also in the press briefing, the spokesperson said that those arrests were made in his personal residence, at Senator Ashiru's personal residence.
You see, as far as I'm concerned, there are so many issues here. So many issues. If you look at the whole situation, you tend to ask some questions. This Senator Ashiru's allegation, does it come before or after the arrest of his aides?
Definitely after the arrest.
So if it is after the arrest of his aides, I mean he's fighting back. You understand? That means he is fighting back. If not that, why didn't he make that accusation before the NDLEA go after?
It's safe to say that sometimes people speak from experience, and when he was making that argument during the plenary, he was speaking from experience.
No, what I'm saying basically, you understand, the fact is there was an allegation in-house from the Senate. And not from somebody, but from maybe the Deputy Senate President, right? Kausmaila, is he not the Deputy Senate?
Senator Kausmaila is not the one who is making the accusation. Senator Ashiru from Kurra State is the one making the accusation.
I am saying there's an accusation from the Senator Kau that some of his colleagues are into drugs dealing or so on. You understand? And somebody now reacted by coming to the to the floor of the Senate and make accusation against the NDLEA. You understand? So something must have triggered the reaction. Anyway.
But do you think it's also, I mean, just to talk about experiences, right? We've seen government institutions being used for political reasons sometimes. We've seen some prosecutions that leaves much to be desired because of the persons involved, and that is what he is alluding to.
But
is NDLEA, in your view, immune to being used as an attack dog?
What I am saying, this is not the first time that such an allegation is coming out of the Senate. If you could remember, in some years back, there's the late senator from Niger State, who was a retired DIG, made an allegation in the floor of the Senate that some people he has prosecuted, some people that he has arrested for doing one thing or the other, are with him in the Senate here. That is unfortunate that such kind of people should be at the Senate. Do you understand? So this is not the first time a senator will come out and make an allegation against his colleagues. So it's not new. Do you understand? There are so many characters in that Senate and House of Reps that sometimes you say only in Nigeria such a thing can happen. Do you understand?
You don't think they are above board as senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria?
They are the only people that are above board. You have so many individuals in this country that don't even respect the law. You understand? Nobody respects the law. If the law is respected, there are a lot of people that have no business in being somewhere. You understand? But the issue is, when you talk about corruption, are you pointing a finger at one particular agency in this country? No. It's not possible.
Right.
Are the senators themselves immune from what they are accusing some people from doing? They are not. We all know that. So it's a Nigerian situation. We have to face it the way it is, and we have to be frank with ourselves. If there is an issue or an allegation against a senator, and the NDLEA went to his house and they said they make some arrests of his personal aides, maybe dealing in drugs and whatsoever, they should allow the law to take its course. Then, but for you to come out and start challenging them, in the floor of the Senate, I don't think it makes sense. You go and try and if you are not involved, that is to say, if you personally is not involved, then you have to allow the law to take its course.
Let's talk about the current trajectory of the NDLEA, because it has been enjoying some public support for quite some time now. The arrests, the drug seizures have been quite commendable. They're in the news every other week for certain drug busts on land, in our ports, and so on and so forth. Give me a sense of what you think the agency is going through, especially from a PR perspective, because this surely has the makings of, undoing the great work the personnel of the NDLEA have been doing. If a senator comes out and we're debating this on national television and it's a debate at the floor of the Red Chamber, clearly this would definitely look bad on the NDLEA, because there are some people who on face value would simply say, I believe what the senator is saying, because Nigerian institutions can be funny at times. But what do you think this does to the current trajectory of the NDLEA's fight against drug abuse and trafficking?
It doesn't do anything. What it does is that it will shake them up, make them not assume or take for granted the kind of publicity they are enjoying now. I think from a PR perspective, the person who is the spokesman is a strategic PR person. And that is why, after maybe looking and weighing all the options, he decided to hold that press conference. Now, if we look at the debate itself, the debate has two issues. The issue, that first and foremost, of Senator Kawu, raising the issue that some of his colleagues are into or encouraging the drug business, and then the repartee, which was not probably aimed at the NDLEA in the first place. It's just that the NDLEA took, was caught by a stray bullet. Because what the other senator was trying to do was defend the fact, and maybe he feels it's common knowledge that some of his aides were, so maybe he thought that Senator Kawu's statement was meant for him. So it's it's a debate thing between two people. Oh, yeah, some of my colleagues, and he didn't mention names, and the person comes out and said the NDLEA itself is a corrupt institution. Yeah. So I don't think it's an issue that primarily involved the NDLEA itself. But it has to do damage control from the PR perspective to distance itself from those accusations. So from a PR perspective, I don't think it does anything to the NDLEA as itself. Like I said, Nigerians tend to believe anything because of the way corruption has eaten into society. So if you come today without investigation and you say something million got lost in one public institution, the first reaction of Nigerians is to condemn without even investigating. And if you find out that the story is false, finally, they still will not retract. They will say, well, that's what they are used to.
Damage has been done already. But of course, there are some biases and sentiments attached to things like that. But let's just take a moment to have a listen to what one of the senators had to say about this particular issue regarding the institute that is actually the focus of the Nigerian Senate into the conversation, and the ongoing controversy, or rather, the perceived controversy between the NDLEA and some lawmakers in the Nigerian Senate.
My motivation for bringing up this bill is that, you see, a lot of people are being destroyed by these illicit drugs, and the thing is escalating. Right? I'll give you an example. In Kano now, even housewives, there are many housewives that are into drugs. before we always lament our kids, our youth going into drugs, but now it has extended, it has escalated to housewives taking drugs. And there is no rehabilitation center for drugs in the whole of this country, never. You see, so my proposal is enlightenment. That's the basic ingredients of my bill.
Senator Hanger there speaking on that proposal for the creation or establishment of an institute that will handle drug abuse as well as rehabilitation cases across the country. And he was just pointing out the severity of some of these cases across different parts of the country. Kano State, for instance, has been dealing with this, what many say is an epidemic of drug abuse, as he was pointing out there. Even housewives have now become a part of the critical study to arrest and mitigate the spread of this cancerous phenomenon in the Nigerian society. So let's just talk about some of the policy ideas or programs that the NDLEA under Abubakar Mora retired have been talking about. Brigadier Abubakar Mora retired. He was talking about drug testing for public officers. In fact, there was this idea about drug testing for secondary school students and so on and so forth to arrest this particular issue that we're dealing with, because on a societal level it is quite problematic. But what do you make of what this could look like if we have to go to the Nigerian Senate or the House of Representatives to gain support for this, especially when the lawmakers, apparently being accused of being a part of the problem?
Okay, first I wanted to go back to your previous question or regarding the NDLEA. You know the antecedents of the current chairman of NDLEA, Brigadier General Abubakar. We all know him, and the successes he has. Every day you wake up in this country, you heard that one individual or another has been arrested either at the airport or in his house. The operative will go there and seize drugs and make arrests and so on. Since he assumed leadership of the NDLEA, there has been a lot of successes in the busting of drugs matters and so on. And he has a reputation which most people that know him knows his antecedents. You understand, when it comes to when you give him a place to head, he will always succeed and he will always make a name for himself. So I think there's no gainsaying if you say the leadership under him now probably might be different from other leadership in the past. You understand, because everybody knows his antecedents as when he was a governor in Lagos State, his achievements.
Yeah. I mean, he's one person, but we're talking about an institution.
No, that is what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah. I'm not saying that the fact that he is at the helm of affairs there, that the whole institution is corrupt-free. No, he cannot be everywhere. You understand, you have a lot of cases where there are allegations that a seizure is made or the arrest is made before they get to their office, the whole thing will not be found and so on. He's always there. But as my brother here said, would that deter them from doing their job? No. They cannot run away from allegations, whether they are or not. As we are witnessing now, the whole thing started from the Senate itself. A senator accused his colleagues in dealing with drugs, and now the NDLEA has gone in, and they make some arrest from a senator's house, And I want you to know that, or to remember that for every action there, you should expect a reaction. That's a law of nature. You can't run away from that. For every action, you should expect a reaction. That's the law of nature. So you see, but the whole thing started, I believe, this time around from the Senate. An allegation from their own colleague. You understand? Against his own colleagues. And now are you saying that with that kind of allegation, probably before the allegation there are, is common knowledge, the NDLEA, but because as my brother here said, once they are on the floor of the Senate, they are immune. You understand? Whatever they say, they cannot be charged. You understand? Probably that is the reason why the NDLEA did not swing into action. But with this current allegation coming in from the House, from the Senate itself, so maybe that triggered the action for them to go after some of the senators or so on. You can't tell.
Okay. Not sure if they're instituting any case against any of the senators, but also a different part of that interview with Senator Hanga from Kano State is focusing on this particular controversy. So let's hear what the senator from Kano State had to say about this.
They should not have said that. It's unfortunate. They should attack a senator that they arrested people. And what did they do about it? Why was not it exposed till now when he spoke against what they maybe want to? Maybe they want some more responsibility. You understand? But I wouldn't mind. But if you give them this responsibility, create a department for this, and they cannot cope.
It's safe to say that Senator Hanga is not necessarily on the side of the NDLEA on this one, especially with regards to the whole controversy. Mr. Kehinde, he was talking about why is the NDLEA coming out with this counter accusations after the fact. I mean, they said they gave the Senator Ashiru, a week to reconsider his opinion, his take on this particular issue. Why now, and what did they actually do about the investigation? Do you think there's a point there to be made?
No, it's safe to say that the NDLEA would respond. I don't think the NDLEA wants. No, it knows that it cannot institute a defamation case because the senators are immune. Yes, they are immune on the floor.
Yeah, on the floor of the
They don't have immunity, but anything that is said on the floor of plenary
cannot be used against
them.
That's interesting.
So they know they can't take action based on that, and any action will be seen as retaliatory. So this is the best path to take from a PR perspective. Okay, we've heard your accusations, but let's set the record straight, and they've set the record straight. Obviously, you expect senators to support each other in this. So it's two parallel lines that will not meet. Yes, so you can't beat a child and say it won't cry. So they have done the beating, and the child has responded.
And when we talk about,
is already out of the bag.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about empowering the NDLEA, as he was alluding to there, Senator Hanga was alluding to about more responsibilities for it. If we consider the scale of the problem and the scale of operations of the NDLEA, I mean, week in, week out, we've seen some of these success stories: arrests at the airports, people inbound, outbound flights, on the borders, across communities, and things like that. Do you think the NDLEA, with its current structure, is poised in such a manner that it could deliver the success that we want it to deliver?
It's delivering as it is. But the NDLEA is a law enforcement agency. You can't expect it to be doing rehabilitation. You can't expect it to be doing awareness. That's probably why this new institute is being propped up. That's the problem we have in Nigeria. We set up an agency and we say regulate. Then somewhere along the line you say go and make revenue. Then somewhere along the line you say go and prosecute. There must be, because if you overburden an agency, the effectiveness,
you think they're
levels out.
good at enforcement,
They're good
catching
at
the bad guys?
catching the
But
bad.
I was thinking they have a rehabilitation centers.
They do.
Yeah, but
They
you know,
do.
to the point exactly is that they haven't been doing a great job with the rehabilitation, because we know them as
So
enforcers.
is it not going to be a duplication if you say you? I think their bill, their act. I don't know anything about their act, but I was thinking maybe their acts, part of their acts is rehabilitation.
Well, yes, part of their
Because
act.
I know
part of their
they
act
have
is to
a lot of-
sensitize.
And
against-
rehabilitate.
And rehabilitate. But now, probably in their wisdom, the Senate is seeing that, okay,
They are not
let's
doing a good
separate.
job.
Yeah, let's separate the functions, and let's have an institute that, because the
That
problem
deals,
that deals primarily with rehabilitation and awareness, and I think it's a good idea, because the scale at which we have, you know, when NDLEA was set up, it was set up at the point in which Nigeria was a transit point. And so people were not using in the country. But now we have a situation in which there are now more users than there are traffickers.
They are even accusing married women.
Yes, they're even saying married women are now using. The youths have come into the picture and are using. And, you know, it has become a scale that cannot be managed alone by the NDLEA. Because the NDLEA still has to go and catch the criminals.
Right, let's talk about the optics of this conversation. The NDLEA, as we know, is a federal agency. And also just to draw parallels or comparisons with what the EFCC is going through right now, the foremost anti-graft agency, also another federal agency. Do you think there's something suspicious about how these two critical agencies have come under attack? I know the attacks are not necessarily new altogether, but given where we are right now, do you think there's anything worrisome about how these agencies apparently are being hit from all sides regarding their operations?
But you should look at the nature of their operations, right? If you look at the nature of their operations, you now come to the conclusion that if there are attacks against them, it should be expected.
You think it's because they're stepping on toes, they're doing a good job?
Toes and they are doing a good job, and some people are not comfortable with what they are doing because they are stepping on their toes, and you don't expect them to sit down and be watching them. You understand they have to devise a means to try to protect themselves from maybe arrest or some of these things, and the only way they can do it is through publicity. You understand? And the whole thing now is out of I think Nigeria is about the only, or one of the only countries that have no censorship on all these online things that is going on and so on. It's a free fall. Everybody can just go into social media and say anything he likes, and literally when you disseminate that kind of information, if I, as a matured person, maybe will understand that what this person is posting is not true, or is not, it has nothing to do with what he is saying, right? You don't expect some other people to believe, to think the same way I'm thinking. You understand? With the current situation, this social media thing in this country that is not regulated, is not censored, a lot of things is going on that the government, I don't think the government is checking anything, is not regulating anything.
I think when it comes to social media censorship, I think the verdict is out on that one. The National Assembly has tried in time past, rather unsuccessfully because of how unpopular the idea is. But in talking about, you know, one particular element that has been linked to this conversation, the arrest of the aides of Senator Ashiru, for instance, we do know that because of the political climate in the country, thuggery has become a part of the system.
The new normal.
Right? Yeah. And much of that has to also do with drug abuse and, you know, trafficking itself. And you also have politicians who are either sponsors or people who are managing these political thugs that we usually see become active during the campaign seasons or you know, just before elections or immediately after elections. They do rely on them to some degree, right? What kind of conversation do you think NDLEA can have with these politicians who are either senators, who are either governors, highly ranked individuals in the society? What kind of conversation can we have that would not amount to a blame game between you being corrupt or the institution underperforming or being complicit and so on and so forth? Do you see a handshake between the politicians who are the godfathers, sponsors of these political thugs who abuse drugs, who traffic drugs, and an agency that's supposed to mitigate and enforce the law when it comes to drug trafficking and abuse?
I think when we talk about a handshake, that is where the NDLEA will get itself in trouble. I think the best way it can justify itself and its mandate.
No handshakes.
No handshake. Prosecution. Prosecute quickly, effectively, have all the evidence. You understand? Even if it is the thugs and the aides that are prosecuted this time around, one day it will touch one of the sponsors because one of the thugs or one of the aides will finger
his boss.
But you know, when you start talking about handshakes, the problem continues to grow bigger. The problem will continue to, you know, when you go round and round and round and get bigger and get worse.
So you think this cat and dog relationship would continue, even with politicians who don't necessarily have...
It will. It will. Because politicians themselves don't really have love for these thugs. They're just tools. And that is why you have the kind of situation we have in the country today. Many of those that are fostering insecurity today used to be political thugs who are given guns, small arms and light weapons to prosecute that. And when they were not useful again, they were thrown away. And they still had these guns, and they still had these light weapons, and they still had these arms. So, you understand, they became their own bosses, and this is what we are having in the country now. In the past, we've had situations in which it was still EFCC that raided the houses of some ex-governors and found weapons.
Right.
And you consider them to just sit down and they don't fight back?
It's safe to say that it's quite the conundrum that we have on our hands. But gentlemen, thank you very much for your insightful takes as well as analysis on this one. That's where we're going to have to anchor the conversation. Mr. Kehinde Amodu, State House correspondent and planning and commissioning editor, Trust TV. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Musa, Kurra, Abubakar, the president, Association of Auctioneers, Nigerian Auctioneers. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. I appreciate you for stopping by.
My pleasure.
All right. That's our show for you tonight. As always, we appreciate you for your time and company. Daily Politics will be back tomorrow, live and exclusive as always on Trust TV. Until next time, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Good night.